If you're excited for fantasy football in June, then I got a mock draft for you. Tonight is June 23rd, and we're going to run a way too early 12-team, 1-quarterback PPR redraft mock. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy, this is Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan right here on Optimus Fantasy, coming to you every Monday evening until week 1 of the NFL season. I am your host, Evan Sather. Tonight, I have a very fun guest joining me. He covers the Chicago Bears regularly. He is also the founder of SoBackSports on YouTube. Please welcome to the show, Amrith. Amrith, welcome in, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Glad to be here.
So Amrith was very nice enough back in February to have me on his show for a live stream on the SoBackSports YouTube channel, covering early Chicago Bears draft hype and running an actual Bears mock draft of who the Bears could take with all of their draft picks. And with the simulator that we had, we absolutely crushed it that evening, even though we kind of knew in advance that it wasn't going to go exactly as it would 2 months later in April.
Yeah, pretty much. The whole mock draft, like everything, just kind of fell apart of us when it comes to. So kind of crazy how it turned out.
Because I think we were pretty darn certain that we were going to get Ashton Jeanty, no matter who or what it was going to take to get that draft pick from the Raiders, as we knew that the Raiders really wanted him too. But I'm thinking that Poles just couldn't get the right offer to get Jeanty on the team, so we had to go get Ben's guy in Colston Loveland and then just keep going from there. Did you see the Bears drafting a tight end in the first round like they did?
I mean, there were a lot of mock drafts that were having like Tyler Warren going to Chicago Bears at the 10th spot. But to think that there wasn't a chance that we would get any other player at the 10th spot, you know, at the end of the day, Colston Loveland, great player, solid player and whatnot. It just that, and I think that it was Ben's guy at the end of the day, because, you know, he has the makings of a Ben tight end pretty much. And I trust his instinct when it comes to that, that pick. But to think that we wouldn't like go for someone else, the draft board feels like ages ago at this point. But to think that, you know, after Jeanty didn't fall to us, I forgot who else. There was like some other players as well that we were like looking at. I was like, oh, maybe Tyler Warren. If there was a tight end to take, it would be him. But I think at the end of the day, Colston Loveland fit Ben Johnson's scheme much better.
Yeah, I really shouldn't be surprised that that's who they ended up selecting because, yeah, like you just said, he was a Ben Johnson guy. But I was live here with the Optimus team during the NFL draft, and when I saw Loveland got taken at number 10 overall, I just threw my hands up and I just walked off camera because I'm just like, well, what about Cole Kmet?
Exactly. Yeah, like I feel that sentiment as well. Like genuinely, when I was live streaming it as well, the instant reaction was, oh, okay. I mean, not what I expected at all. And my co-host, my brother, was all up in flames, like, oh, Poles has done it again, doing some reach of a pick and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, I mean, let's take a step back. You know, there's definitely a reason for it. You know, Ben Johnson's more sound, and Ben Johnson's definitely working with Ryan Poles for these draft picks. So at the end of the day, it could be a good pick. And the more we talk about it, and like the only issue I think was the injury history with him. He's still recovering from an injury, but so far in camp, he's been, you know, showing up and doing the things that he needs to do to make his debut in September.
Yeah, and I really love the content that you've been putting out there over the last few weeks of videos on your YouTube channel, SoBackSports on YouTube, if you guys were curious. Between all kinds of topics, between could Nick Chubb be a good fit for the Chicago Bears as a depth piece at running back, talking about possible concerns about Luther Burden's soft tissue injury. How far can Ben Johnson take the Chicago Bears in 2025? And even then, you don't even stop at Chicago Bears current players. You'll even talk about Justin Fields possibly helping the New York Jets win. So off-season content like that can be really hard to come up with, and I think you've been doing a great job so far on covering the Bears and beyond.
Appreciate it. Yeah, just trying to, at this point with the Bears, you can only cover so much, and especially without repeating yourself over and over. So I did this last season as well, where I was trying to cover different topics, different teams in the NFL. So I'm trying to get back into that, especially at this point in the off season. So yeah, I mean, for those who are interested and want to like indulge yourself in some content when it comes to other teams and give my takes on it, feel free to hop on by the SoBackSports podcast and the channel as well.
Yeah, as you also do the live streams, I don't know if they're always with your brother, but major winners and losers of the NFL draft, reactions, off-season updates. Like you don't shy away from the live streams at least once a month, if not more.
Oh yeah, like I think it was last year. I decided, why not? Let's try streaming a game and like just do a watch along, right? And that turned into after that doing multiple games, live streaming for that, and then doing live streams on the podcast itself, because we do pre-recorded podcast episodes and then schedule it later. But now we're mixing it up a bit, trying to extend our comfort zones a little bit. And that's something that I'm trying to do as a content creator on this platform, is get out of my comfort zones and it without a pre-prepared script, just have a conversation with people. And that's kind of the main goal of having the podcast, with guests, and kind of talking with the chat as well. So it's like another element to that.
I know exactly how that feels too, Amrith, because when I started Barely Fantasy, my YouTube channel, before I joined the Optimus team, that's exactly the biggest hurdle I had, was just getting out of my comfort zone. Even if I'm just recording my voice for the people to hear, that was difficult for me to get over, as well as a mental hurdle. And even as a live streamer like what we're doing right now, even before I started doing my own thing with Barely Fantasy, I used to be on a live stream DraftKings DFS show, just some independent creators on a small channel. And even having my face on camera for that was another hurdle in itself. So you just got to force yourself into doing it, right? If you want it badly enough, you just do it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I learned early on, especially when I was really teetering between, showing my face on camera and doing content like that. But it got to the point where like, you can only do so much when it comes to showing highlights and kind of talking over them, which is a good content strategy at the end of the day. But, forcing myself to, see myself on the camera and improving my like ability to talk to the camera is going to be something that I really wanted to improve on. And I guess I'm seeing a little bit of improvement over the course of the years, or not the years, the couple of months I've been doing it. So, I'm glad to see it's working out.
I'm really happy for you too, just to get 628 subscribers like you've got right now on YouTube. That is not as easy as a lot of people would want you to believe. You have to actually do it to really see how much work goes into it and get people to love what you're doing.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, especially when it gets to like a point where you're not seeing that growth in subscribers a little bit, that's when it truly tests you as a content creator. Like, are you willing to, when things aren't going your way, are you still going out there and putting out content even when you're like not liking it, or if you're just not motivated? I think I've fallen into that point where there were times where I just didn't want to upload anything because of stuff like that. But you just got to do it at times. And if you really want it enough, like, things will work out eventually. It won't be an instant success at the end of the day. So yeah, that's just the piece of advice, I guess, for myself included, and everyone else that are watching.
Sometimes we have a difficult time following our own advice, and that even goes along for mock drafting too, where practice makes perfect, and that's what we're doing this evening here. So we're going to keep things simple with this mock draft coming up on Sleeper. 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 2 flex, 1 defense, 1 kicker. 15 rounds. Should be easy peasy. We're going 30 seconds per pick. I don't want to keep the people waiting too long. Amrith, my man, are you ready?
Oh, heck yeah, I'm ready.
I think we should get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and click start here. And Come on, Firefox. Don't freeze up on me. There we go. Walkman32 is up first. So we're going to get this started here. Jahmyr Gibbs going 101 is an interesting pick. Jamar Chase has usually been the guy to go 101 in every mock draft we've hosted here on Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan so far. Amrith, these days when you draft in your fantasy football leagues, are you still a hero running back guy, or do you go after a Jamar Chase like Steven just did at the 102?
I mean, it really just depends on how the board falls and where you are in the position. In this case, I'm probably going to go wide receiver. I think that Justin Jefferson is due for a good year, and I'll probably pick Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with Justin Jefferson with how much better he makes any quarterback. He's got that Mike Evans, not just aura, but the skill set where he can make any quarterback look good, including Sam Darnold. And Josh Dobbs didn't play much for the Vikings, but even then he kind of made Josh Dobbs look competent until he started throwing all those interceptions against our Bears. But I think we'll save the trash talk against Vikings fans for a little later. Mm-hmm. I'm going to go CD here because I think the Dallas Cowboys are due for a bounce back with their offense. Amrith, what do you think about the Dallas Cowboys offense after they added George Pickens and they're going to get Dak back after that injury last year?
I mean, at the end of the day, like George Pickens gives you that additional like wide receiver help for Dak Prescott. Given what they had last year, it wasn't necessarily like a great wide receiver core. It was just like that one meme where the Corvette is under like a crack house, pretty much. It was literally like that. In terms of their wide receiver core, George Pickens, say what you want about his like off the field antics or even on the field antics at times, but he is a good wide receiver, a good after the catch threat, and kind of like a contested catch wide receiver. So you will get good production out of him. In terms of a fantasy perspective, I don't think he's necessarily like, especially like, in the early rounds, like he's not that true wide receiver 2. I think he's like a wide receiver 2, borderline wide receiver 3 at times because of the production aspect of it. And that's why I think like, for CeeDee Lamb's perspective, like I don't think his production will be, taken like aback because Dak loves CeeDee Lamb as a target, and he's going to get his targets, especially with the amount of money that Jerry Jones has paid CeeDee Lamb this past offseason. So, great pick nonetheless. I think that that's a pretty solid pick.
For sure. And then I followed it up with Achane, as I still believe in Devon Achane as far as being the lead running back in Miami goes. They drafted Jalen Wright last season, but he was having a lot of struggles coming out in his rookie season. So I don't know how much. I'm guessing you do keep up with the rookies as well, Amrith. Do you have any thoughts on Jalen Wright as far as being a good backup to Achane?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure about Jalen Wright. He's a running back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, as far as Miami is concerned, I'm not 100% sure on it, but I mean, listen, with Achane, oh shoot, I have to pick.
I was gonna say I'll let you pick before you answer here. There you go.
All right, I'm gonna take Lamar Jackson as my quarterback. For the fantasy purposes, like he's really good in that. But for Achane, I think he's due for a good season after his initial rookie season. Like he balled out, had some injury concerns, but I think with Miami's offense, it's a bit of a question mark always, especially when it comes to the second half of the season. If you want to talk about a running back that will give you the production, oh geez, it's loud. Wow. But I think that with Achane's production with Tua, like I think Mike McDaniels is going to definitely lean heavily on the run game this year. And yeah, I mean, he's going to be good. And if Jalen Wright's going to be that running back behind him, because I think that with Mostert, like he's not there. I think they traded him or he got cut. I'm not really sure.
They let him walk and he signed with the Raiders.
With the Raiders. Got it. Let me pick running back. I think Jonathan Taylor should be good for a season, but I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be solid this season. They're going to definitely need it, especially with the whole QB conundrum that they're having in Indy right now. So
Yeah, I know a few Colts fans who that's a nice way of putting it, a conundrum right now, but just with a mess that culture is. I've talked about this before, but when even Pat McAfee, a former Colt himself, was talking about how awful the culture has been between players showing up late for team meetings and not being held accountable by Shane Steichen, falling asleep in meetings when they do show up. Among much more, it's just not good team culture when you have that happening. And I'm not at all surprised that they went. I believe they were 7-10 last year as a result. When they've clearly got some talent, but it just doesn't matter when you're not winning football games. So at that point, I don't know what will happen between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson, but I don't like judging quarterbacks until their third season to show what they can really offer in the NFL. Because Anthony Richardson only started in 11 college games, if you can believe that, at Florida. So what do you think about Anthony Richardson this year, Amrith? Does he break out of his struggles and show the NFL why he belongs in it as a starter for the Colts?
Ooh, that's a very, to a Colts fan, that's a really loaded question in the first place, because first of all, I'm not a Colts fan. I'm just saying, from a perspective of a Colts fan, I just think that it's tough because the experience is not there. It's just that they took Anthony Richardson as a project. That's plain and simple. But was it worth taking him as a project in the 4th overall pick? Probably not, looking back. But there definitely is potential. It's just that the injury concerns are still piling up at the end of the day, and it's not a good look, especially if you're the front office where you're highly touted potential running, what's it called, a quarterback is having these issues, and through 10 a lot more interceptions than touchdowns in his first 3 seasons or 2 seasons. So it doesn't help with that, and the whole thing about tapping himself out of a game, and Joe Flacco being in there, and now he's on the Cleveland Browns. This whole QB room and QB conundrum, like I said, is pretty bizarre. And I think with this season, I don't think it's going to improve any further. I just think that adding Daniel Jones is like a Band-Aid on an open flesh wound. And it's just that I think unless Anthony Richardson continues to get more reps in training camp, I just don't see that potential there. Maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? Because weirder stuff has happened in the NFL. But as it stands right now, I just think that the mentality, the whole growth as a player is just not there for me, and I just don't think it's gonna work out.
Unfortunately, Amrith, I think I have to agree with you on that. I don't think the answer at quarterback for the Colts is either Daniel Jones, nor is it going to be Anthony Richardson. Ever since they practically killed the optimism for Andrew Luck to want to play in the NFL ever again, they had to go through a lot of old veterans to figure out what to do at that position. Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Joe Flacco. They drafted Anthony Richardson, and even he's struggling. And now they got Danny Dimes, who came off of just a very poorly managed New York Giant team where Brian Dable benched him and then proceeded to cut him. And that makes me worried for a guy like Jackson Dart, who they spent a first round pick on. But at least it seems like he'll be sitting behind Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. And their weapons are going to be Malik Neighbors and Malik Neighbors again. So FF Pudge took Malik Neighbors as his first wide receiver off the board. Do you still believe in Malik Neighbors being a top 5 wide receiver?
He has the potential to. Last year with the amount of the QB carousel in New York, he was still able to put a really good solid season. But him and Brian Thomas Jr. Sorry, I could not for some reason get that name out of me. But both of them really killed it as rookies last year. Let me pick my player real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
James Conner had a good season, but I think he's a little on the older side. Houston. I think, why not go for another wide receiver and give Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers together? I think they're
All
going to
right.
have a good season this year.
So
What was I saying again? About
yeah, so we were talking about the New York Giants as far
got
as
it.
their receiving core.
Yeah, like Neighbors, like hats off to him from the last season because it was just like they were really not going anywhere as a team. And, he showed out with whoever was at quarterback and his ability to kind of create offense off the go. Like, that's why they drafted him from LSU. That's why I think he was the first wide receiver. Was he second wide receiver taken off behind Marvin Harrison Jr.
Correct.
And like he showed those intangibles that he had. A lot of late hands, a lot of very fast off the two steps, and it goes to show you like you can have a really good wide receiver talent, and who you can have whoever at quarterback, and they will still deliver. And I think that um, he will continue to do that with the QB carousel that is the New York Giants and whoever they pick to be the three quarterbacks next year.
Yeah, so it really is a big wait and see game. And we have a question from Jamie here in the comments. He just realized that he has a triple stack, which his team is Big Game James over here, where he took Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and then Jalen Hurts as a triple stack. And when you started drafting as well, Amrith, you got yourself the Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers stack. Stacking is a strategy that I don't necessarily recommend as a must-do in regular fantasy football leagues like this. What do you feel about stacking in formats like this? And do you usually do it in your own leagues?
Sometimes it really depends on it. Like I think if there's a QB and wide receiver duo that I think is going to really like have synergy with each other, then I would usually double stack at most. Triple stacking would be a little bit tougher for me because, like, at least from a perspective of diversifying, my players that I draft. And listen, in terms of what Big Game James is doing, like, it could work at the end of the day. I'm not saying it wouldn't, but it's just that you're more likely down the line when you're trying to say like a team has a bye week, your team has a bye week, and no wait, not the team. Like the Philadelphia Eagles have a bye week, and then what happens? And then you like lose three different players at that point, and you would have to like scurry through the transfer market just to get some players to kind of make up for that lost points. So
Yeah, and that's a mistake I've made before with my best ball teams, where I just have too many players with a week 11 bye, a week 7 bye. So, yeah, that's often the tedious part that we all have to go through when drafting our players here. Having that realization, maybe it's later on in the draft, maybe it's after the draft, where you go, oh, crap, I picked too many players with X bye week. So, Amrith, when you realize that you have too many players with a bye week like that, how do you feel about that prior to week 1? And do you necessarily panic about it as you go on along in the season? Like, let's say you have too many players from week 12. You can afford to wait to deal with it later on in the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, it could also be really good trade aspects to it. Like when it comes to negotiations, especially when you're trying to trade with other players that are not willing to trade, you can be like, hey, that's a really good element. You have this player has a bye week, your player has a bye week, and it kind of like overlaps in a sense. And from there, you can strike a deal potentially. And that's something I would like to always consider when it comes to, picking players. But I want to take, that's really not much in terms of wide receiver help. I'll probably take Rome Odunze at this point because I think he's going to have a great year, especially under the Ben Johnson offense. And I get it. DJ Moore is still on the team, but I just think that he's going to have that second year boost along with Caleb Williams. And, DJ Moore is not going to be there for long term. They're going to start building that chemistry as soon as possible. And I think he's going to have a solid season.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about DJ Moore having attitude issues, chemistry problems, always he's another wide receiver diva. But when you play for a Chicago Bears where they don't even have a real head coach in Matt Eberflus, I think you'd be complaining too, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's like the whole thing when it came to the Chicago Bears, it was genuinely like the writing was on the wall, but the fans and the organization were just not willing to accept that. And as a fan watching it, you could see it on the field. Like everyone was very not meticulous with their routes. They were just so out of it for most of the games, and rightfully so, due to the fact that we would get blown out. But that comes with the culture. It comes out that Shane Waldron was a huge yes man, and doesn't even have film sessions with his quarterback. What's up with that? And it's like, it's like, oh, how could a team how could this team not have so much weapons, but it just doesn't seem to work? How could that be? And you see that it all systemic, like, and that's what I think Ryan Poles and the McCaskies thankfully realized this and did the right thing about going out and getting the first choice. I think that's a step in the right direction, obviously. And getting Ben Johnson is definitely a culture change. And the staff that he put together with a mixture of, experience and inexperience, like that's going to only benefit the Chicago Bears going forward and for a couple of years down the line. So going back to the DJ Moore point, I think that, well, yes, it was definitely, wrong of him to kind of like show outwardly that, like, that, I don't care mentality. But it was a general systemic issue within the organization. And at that point in the season, they've lost so many games. So there was kind of like no point of return, and people were just done with it. And Jalen Johnson was the one to, diffuse the situation at the end of the day. And look at where we are right now with Ben Johnson.
And speaking of culture change, I think another thing that a lot of people don't realize, especially if you're not a Bears fan like us, Ted Phillips is no longer the team president, who is just another McCaskey family friend who is never going to rock the boat or do anything to make any big moves for the team. Kevin Warren from the Minnesota Vikings was his replacement. I believe he was also the former Big Ten president for NCAA, if I'm not mistaken. He was instrumental in getting the new stadium built for the Minnesota Vikings when their old stadium had that roof collapse many years ago when Brett Favre was their quarterback from that horrible snow thing, and they got their new stadium built. And I think that was the main reason why they brought him in. And now he's actually backing up Ryan Poles, and George McCaskey's actually listening to both of them. So I think that was instrumental in getting Ben Johnson to become the Chicago Bears head coach. And that's the example of the culture change that, average NFL fans are not going to see this just because these are very specific things, right?
Right. Yeah, like 100%. Your culture will take a while to build. Like that's, you see that with what Ben Johnson tried to build with um in Detroit. And, it wasn't necessarily an instant success, and it was, years of drafting, instilling a culture with Dan Campbell, and look at where they are right now. Like they are, thriving off of that post Ben Johnson era because they still have the pieces left. They have the playbook pretty much of like what to do. Let me pick real quick. I think Cam Scadaboo, but I'll take Cam Scadaboo. Why not? Because you have to get Tracy and Scadaboo are gonna have the workload for the running back position. So I think that that'll be a pretty solid move. Would I have taken him this early? Probably not. But given that how the draft board kind of fell apart, I was like, okay, maybe that's the move right now.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Amrith. I don't hate Scadaboo as a third running back. You got Jonathan Taylor as your hero, RJ Harvey, who is presumed to be the lead of whatever committee that Sean Payton's gonna put together in Denver. And now with Scadaboo in the picture, if he turns out to be a high IQ running back where people are concerned that he doesn't have the speed that it takes to be in today's NFL, but speed's not everything. You can be a patient running back who's not the fastest guy and still succeed. So, do you believe Tyrone Tracy's job is necessarily safe, or is this going to be a two-back committee, or what do you see the Giants' backfield being?
I think it could be very well a two-back committee, just for the sole purpose that you have question marks on the quarterback position right now. Listen, Russell Wilson can get you at least a couple wins. Jameis Winston can get you a couple wins. Like, you have like different, too many cooks in the same kitchen at this point, and you have to have a solid run game. What does Russ need? A solid run game to thrive in a system. Well, and I think Brian Dable recognizes that, and that's why he ended up in the later rounds drafting Cam Scadabo out of Arizona, because Tracy is being the only running back for them after the Saquon departure. It's, you can't have that, and you need to have your future running back set in place. And let's say Jackson Dart, say he starts, he also needs a run game as well. So, him along with Tyrone Tracy, you need to have some cohesion. Might as well build off of each other's momentum. And I think that's probably what they're going to do.
I agree with that. I can't imagine being a Giants fan and having to lose Saquon to a conference rival in the Eagles, and they just won the Super Bowl.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's literally like Jalen Johnson leaving to the Packers and they winning a Super Bowl. Like, that's like almost the equivalent of that. It's just horrible. I can't even imagine at that point, like, what I would feel.
That would be a nightmare that I prefer not to have, my man.
Yeah, me too. Thankfully, he's under contract. That's all that matters. So,
indeed.
Yeah.
So Lou mentioned that I'm bringing out the quote-unquote two geriatric tight end formation because I drafted Travis Kelce and then I followed up with Evan Ingram. But so Evan Ingram is 30 now, and he's had a lot of injuries in his career that led him to missing a lot of time, which in my opinion, that just means he's fresher than the average tight end in the league. He proves that if he can play a full season, he's definitely a top 10 tight end. So now that he joins Sean Payton, where the Denver Broncos haven't had a great tight end since Julius Thomas, do you believe Evan Ingram still has it in him to be a top 10 tight end in fantasy football?
I mean, he's playing off of like, I forgot what happened to him last year. Did he get hurt? Do you remember by any chance if he got hurt? Because I assumed that his production went down for the sole purpose of, him not being fully healthy, if I remember correctly. And I think that, this is a new opportunity, a new chance, under a good offensive mind like Sean Payton, who, had some relatively not so good luck with tight ends, but with the experienced player like Evan Ingram, like, I don't see why not. He could be really good for them. And I think that, Bo Nix is a good enough quarterback to, get him the ball when he needs it. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Ferguson from Dallas.
I like it. Yeah, so Evan Ingram only played in 9 games last season, and Jake Ferguson also had to try and carry the workload. He didn't play a full schedule either, but even then, like, any chemistry he was trying to get in with Cooper Rush was just not working out whatsoever. So the Jacksonville Jaguars did not replace Ingram. They ended up, it looks like they're going to end up going with Brenton Strange. So, Amrith, have you read much about him, and do you like him as a potential sleeper tight end?
Strange? Oh, from like the Patriots?
The Jaguars.
The Jaguars. Gotcha. Because I remember Strange was on the Patriots at one point, and I forgot where he ended up. But okay, I mean, it could be very solid. Like, listen, I think the one thing about the tight end position, when it comes to fantasy football that I've noticed over the course of a couple of years, is that you never really know what tight end, and you can say this about a lot of positions. You don't necessarily know what tight end will take advantage of the opportunity that they're in. And what I mean by that is uh not every tight end that goes to a new situation is going to thrive in them, even if it is a good situation. It would be the most randomest like points, like randomest like tight ends that will start to like pop off. I remember there was one tight end. Oh, Jonnu Smith. Like, listen, Jonnu Smith was a huge tight end for the Miami Dolphins this past season. For some reason, they just loved to target him. And all of a sudden, in a team where you have Tyreek Hill, like a decent amount of running backs with HN when he came back, and Jalen Waddle, who has been kind of a question mark, you start to rely on Jonnu Smith as your safety blanket at times for Tua. So it's players like that. The tight end position, like for Strange in this case, he could very well, depending on how the Jacksonville Jaguars utilize him, given that Evan Ingram is no longer on the team, I could very well see that he could take advantage of that opportunity and Trevor Lawrence could utilize him very well.
Yeah, definitely. Because the Jaguars had mentioned that James Gladstone, their new GM, said that they see Brenton Strange doing things in ways that we haven't seen before, which is vague, and we don't really know what that means yet and how well he's going to fit in the offense. But he did catch a lot of balls in the limited action that he got when Ingram was out with an injury. So does that mean he's the second or third look in this offense? That remains to be seen. Kendall actually just sniped Brenton Strange. I like that as a second tight end pick behind Tyler Warren. And we also have a question from Jamie once again here. Thoughts on going 2 quarterbacks so early in a single quarterback league like Team 8, which would be Vegas Jeff here, who picked Bo Nix in the 6th and then Caleb Williams in the 10th. So you also did a 2 quarterback setup so far, Amrith, between Lamar Jackson and Justin Herbert. Do you prefer drafting 2 quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league, or is this not what you typically do?
I mean, I usually take 2, no matter what it is, because you had to think about it in this angle. Like, if you're going to try to change your team because things happen, especially in the NFL, very high variability, you kind of want to have a second quarterback for, a backup or as a trade asset. Because for me, it really has helped a lot, because if I have sometimes I would do 2 quarterback leagues and I would have a third quarterback on the bench, and it would be very useful for me to have them, because a lot of players in like the later picks and stuff that didn't take a quarterback and have a really bad quarterback in their team, like they would be needing a quarterback, right? So why not, be able to have opportunities to have people in give me 1 second.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to take my boy Pat Bryant from Illinois. Let's go.
Okay.
But yes, sir. But yeah, like having that quarterback can really benefit you just for the sole purpose of trade value. Because if you need, if the person you're trying to negotiate says you don't have enough, you can always throw a quarterback depending on how good it is in there. And that's just me. That's just how I kind of roll with things. And I think that can help you down the line, especially near the later stages of fantasy.
Yeah. So as you're making this next pick here, the one thing I'll tell you is that I usually don't draft 2 quarterbacks, because if you only need to start one, then there's only possible to start one, then you don't need to draft 2 of them, in my opinion. But I did it differently last year in my home redraft league, which was only 10 teams. I drafted Jalen Hurts in the 3rd round, but then sometime in this later rounds, like what we had here, I grabbed a rookie Jaden Daniels because the value was just so good. But guess which quarterback I ended up keeping, Amrith? Jaden Daniels. I ended up trading Jalen Hurts to the Devontae Smith shareholder because I needed depth at wide receiver, and it worked out. I mean, I won the ship, so I got to pat myself on the back for that one.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I should do that too at times, especially for like a 1 quarterbacks league. But if you're I guess in my cases, it's usually like I usually do two quarterbacks. I think the leagues I'm in, except I rarely am in one quarterback leagues. Um, but yeah, like you're 100% correct. Like you don't necessarily need a second quarterback. I usually just take him as like usually a trade value kind of pick, and it's usually in the later rounds as well. So I'm not like utilizing my capital that I'm already spending on like an early quarterback or early two quarterbacks, right? So yeah, and especially with Lamar Jackson in this case, he has that rushing ability, and I think like from a fantasy perspective, he's going to be pretty solid. Always, it's like a Swiss Army knife at the end of the day when it comes to that. So that's just me.
So let's get back to your boy Pat Bryant here. ILLINI here, baby.
Sure.
Pat Bryant has been getting a lot of hype in a lot of fantasy football circles as potentially he could be the next Michael Thomas because he excels at slant routes. And he's got a good body size, and the Denver Broncos don't really have a strong wide receiver too behind Cortland Sutton. What do you see as a potential development path for Pat Bryant? Do you think he lives up to that hype right away?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think after watching him in Illinois, and I think from the amount of mock drafts, I really hoped that he would fall to a certain point and Ben Johnson could pick him up, because watching this dude play wide receiver is so great, because dude can, do the short routes, the underneath routes, the mid-sized routes, and the go ball as well. He has the whole package in my eyes. And for someone like Bo Nix, who can definitely utilize that along with Cortland Sutton and Sean Payton's scheme, like the sky's the limit for this dude. And he is a workhorse. He is a hard worker, hardworking dude. I have no question that he will succeed under the tutelage of Sean Payton and crew.
Yeah, that's a really glowing review of him too. I'm starting to think when my dynasty rookie draft comes up, I may need to spend a later round pick or try to get him right away as an undrafted rookie. So that's singing pretty good praises here. So as we're wrapping up this draft here, we got started in the 13th round with drafting kickers and defenses. I usually don't go this early for kickers. I drafted Boswell in the 13th over Nick Chubb, which may or may not be a great idea because we don't know yet how many carries Chubb is going to get behind Joe Mixon. But at this point, there are folks who don't necessarily draft a kicker or don't necessarily draft a defense. Have you ever been that bold in a redraft league, Amrith, where you skip that part just to grab another flex consideration player?
I have a couple of times. It's, not out of the ordinary for me. But sometimes when there's like a good defense out there, like that can definitely like score you points. Like, I'm trying to remember when the last time I took a defense pretty early. I would say when the Ravens had really good defenders back in the day, 49ers is usually a safe bet. Steelers. I remember at one time, but it was only in the later rounds. I took the Bears defense, which to be fair, it kind of did help a little bit. Jets sometimes, but for the most part, I just usually wait or sometimes not even take a defense at all and just kind of make sure I get as much capital as possible so that next year, or the during the season, it's not really a big concern when it comes to my depth.
What's interesting about that Bears selection too at defense, they did better in DST last year compared to 2022 and 2023 as we just finished the draft here. I'll just mention here that it's worth pointing out that they had 40 sacks, which was actually more than both 2022 and 2023, in addition to more forced fumbles and fumble recoveries, not as many interceptions, and they did get that special teams touchdown against the Packers, which I believe was in Lambeau Field, right, my man?
Yes, sir, of course. 1-0.
So yeah, that drafting the Bears DST last year, that didn't turn out to be the worst. I mean, despite the fact that Eberflus was obviously an idiot, but it worked out.
Oh yeah, like that's the one, I guess, glowing remark for the team. There were times, obviously the kicking, um, yeah, the blocked kicks and stuff like that, like didn't really help us in that favor. But that's one thing that we can kind of hold our hats on is that the special teams wasn't terrible, and it was good enough to get points, especially in fantasy.
So, as we concluded here in this draft, I'm going to ask you what I ask all of my guests in every single week on this show. From a 10,000 foot view, looking at everybody's teams, who do you feel had the best draft?
Okay, let me look at this. For some reason, I can't move this. Oh, can move this now. Okay, okay. Ooh, I like a lot of these teams because of how balanced it is. Um, I will say I really well, besides my team, obviously. I mean, yeah, but I will say I really like Kendall FFT. I think that it looks really underrated from a certain standpoint. You have bell cow running backs in Christian McCaffrey, and listen, you can say what you want about Christian McCaffrey last year, but I think like with this season, with the schedule that they have this season, one of being the third easiest, like how do they get away with this? Like genuinely, how do they get away with this? Christian McCaffrey coming off of an injured season, out for the season, tried to make a return, and Derrick Henry, I think that, and Jaden Daniels as well. Like they loaded up on the running backs in this spot, and I really like that a lot. Um, and the wide receivers, not insane, but adding Travis Hunter, if he is as good as advertised, I think he could be a very big game changer for a wide receiver spot. But I think from a running back perspective, I think he has his tracks covered, especially with Alvin. Yeah, man, like man, that is well, especially Stephon Diggs, wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, good late round pick, good value. Strange, like we talked about, Hopkins at the end, and for Baltimore, I honestly forgot that he went to Baltimore right after like the Super Bowl. Like interesting, but yeah, I like his team a lot. Genuinely do.
You know what's funny, Amrith? As you went through Kendall's team, I surprisingly agree with you. I don't hate this team as many older veterans that he has on this team that scares a lot of the fantasy football community. Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Patrick Mahomes, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins, and even Hollywood Brown. Like all these older veterans who scare the crap out of fantasy football. This could potentially be a winning team because these guys are not scrubs, especially Alvin Kamara being ranked way too low on a Saints team that's expected to be really bad this year. He's got to be the focal point of that offense. There's no way around it.
Oh yeah, and oh man, the fact. Okay, and another thing too as well. I'm surprised Saquon Barkley didn't fall further for the sole purpose of the Madden curse, and that's kind of surprising to me because typically, especially with what happened last year with Christian McCaffrey, like I thought there was going to be some like little bit apprehensiveness when it comes to picking a running back like Christian McCaffrey. But listen, you take what the best player you get. Yeah, like you said, like he says right there, like fifth best, like, and you got to take what you have. And if it turns out to be a dud, that just how you got to live with that and move on, I guess.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, Amrith. I mean, Madden curse or no Madden curse, I still like Saquon Barkley as the 5th overall pick in your typical 12-team redraft league, followed up with Kyron Williams and even taking a shot on a Tony Pollard, who I don't want anything to do with this Titans offense this year, even Calvin Ridley for that matter. I mean, he could have some sneaky value to help out Cam Ward, but the Titans, I don't see how they're going to be better than near the bottom of the AFC this year, battling with the Browns to be the worst team.
I kind of like want to shed some light on this situation with the Titans, and listen, very rightfully so that people are kind of saying that this team is going to be not that great next year. But let's think about it from this perspective. They have been building an offensive line for quite some time now. And I think this year they have a pretty solid offensive line from a standpoint of like completeness. Cam Ward, being the number one overall pick, isn't necessarily going to a terrible situation. He is going to a team that has some weapons, a decent offensive line, and a relatively okay defense, and no pressure whatsoever. And what was Cam's whole shtick back in college? Being the most nonchalant quarterback out there. All those clips you would see of him just standing in the pocket, like still as a rock. Like, I feel like, this is a situation where he's going to the Titans. There's not much media coverage on that. And he's, all the limelight is on like the other quarterbacks that have been taken in the draft. So Titans can be a very sneaky team, especially in AFC South division. That's even the Texans aren't necessarily a runaway favorite per se, and they are the better team out of all of the four. So that's just me. I think that they could be like a 7-win team potentially, which isn't saying like a super hot take, but that's just me.
So speaking of, well, you said Titans, but sometimes I will make a pun out of it and say tight end. So we got a question from Jamie here. So he took Mason Taylor as his last tight end, the rookie that I believe the Jets spent a 4th-round pick on the guy, another weapon for Justin Fields. Who else is going to be the second target on the Jets? And now that Justin Fields is there, he loved peppering Cole Kmet with targets. Do you think Mason Taylor could be a sneaky rookie tight end that could be valuable for fantasy football?
Yeah, of course. Especially with a Jets team that's looking for weapons around them, especially outside of Garrett Wilson. I think that Mason Taylor could be utilized in that sense. I think I forgot his name. Engstrand, the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets.
Tanner Engstrand, yes.
Tanner Engstrand, correct. Thank you. Coming from the Detroit Lions,
yes,
like along with the staff of Aaron Glenn, I think that he will be instrumental into helping Justin Fields acclimate into this offense and kind of getting as much good football out of Justin Fields, especially going into year 5. Was it year 5? Yeah, year 5.
Yep.
Kind of crazy to think about. And
already,
yeah, I know, man, 5 years go by crazy. But I think Mason Taylor will be that safety blanket. I don't know if Conklin is still on the team.
No, he's a Charger now.
Oh, he's a Charger now. Okay. Yeah, so, he's going to get the boatload of the targets now that Conklin's gone. So I could see that. That's a very good take. I wouldn't say that's, like a hot take per se, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Tanner Engstrand too, because that was my big reason for buying Breece Hall in Dynasty. I did it on my independent Barely Fantasy YouTube channel several months ago before I joined Optimus. I really like Breece having a bounce back season because he was a big running game coordinator at San Diego University with Jim Harbaugh in his career, and Harbaugh loves running the football. So that might be a bit of a stretch, but I like that Aaron Glenn took Tanner Engstrand with him. I think this could mean bigger things for the Jets offense, including Breece Hall. That might be a wild take, but I'm going to stick by it as Stephen George picked Breece as his first running back. I like it. I think Breece, we could see a top 10 season out of him. What do you think, Amrith?
Very well could. I mean, I think that with the Jets offensive line being more improved now, I think that the run game is going to open up more. And yeah, very well could see a good season from Breece Hall, who is trying to bounce back after a really lackluster last season. So yeah, I mean, Justin Fields is going to have to utilize a good run game, and with the improved offensive line, adding Breece Hall is going to have a good time, I would say, on that team as an offensive standpoint.
Totally. So getting back to tight ends real quick, we got a question from Mike. Will top 12 tight end be useful for fantasy? Which he's obviously joking about because you get a lot of folks that don't necessarily like to pick tight ends because not everybody can be Travis Kelce in his prime. But I selected 3 tight ends with my draft, and I don't believe, actually, I was the only one who drafted 3 tight ends. Being that we have 2 flex spots, I'm not as shy as I used to be about drafting tight end. I'll take an older Travis Kelce who might be losing his prime, but I'm going to follow up with taking a chance on Evan Ingram and a Sean Payton offense, and then Dallas Goedert, who does get sneaky value here and there, even if game script doesn't necessarily include him in all the games. So, Amrith, am I crazy for drafting 3 tight ends here in a typical redraft league like this?
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of crazy being 1 being not crazy at all. Wait, did I say 1 to 10?
Yes.
Okay, 10 being absolutely out of your mind. I'd say like you're probably like a 3. I don't think it's that crazy to take a 3 tight ends, and that's just solely for the purpose of diversification in my eyes. Like, I just think that you can get as much points from because you took Kelce, right? Kelce is the one of the favorite targets for Patrick Mahomes. Evan Ingram, you're trying to like bank off of, like maybe he could have a really good season, and then Dallas Goedert on the Philadelphia Eagles, like mostly a blocking tight end, but when he has good games, those boomer busts like games are like what will make or break a season at times. So, you could obviously make an argument saying that you could get like another wide receiver at that point or another running back, but especially when the later rounds, like when the running backs aren't like necessarily like plentiful, why not add another tight end? I see the vision right there, man. Like I understand what you're trying to do here, and it makes a lot of sense in my mind.
I'm really glad you see it that way too, Amrith, because that's been my logic as my years of experience goes on with fantasy football. I'd rather go grab a Dallas Goedert than some backup running back like despite the fact that I did draft Tyjae Spears, I would have rather taken Goddard over Spears at this point, being that I don't really like the way the Titans look this year, and I can't see Spears having great flex value every single week, but I mean, Spears can surprise, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's like I said, the Titans can surprise. I'm not saying guaranteeing that they're going to be better. Like, no one can really guarantee that. I just think that with the direction that they're going and them being kind of under the radar, who knows? And it's Brian Callahan's second season, so he could have a bounce back second season for all we know.
Definitely. So, Amrith, this has been great so far. And before we get out of here, I'm going to read a couple of great ads that have been doing great things within fantasy football. This show is also sponsored by Fast Draft Fantasy. We know you love drafting. After all, it's why you're here. And there's no better place to do it right now than the Fast Draft app. Get in and get out with short drafts you can knock out while you wait at the DMV. The Flex 4 drafts are running hot, and the Origins Gammas contests are only half full. Head over to fastdraft.app and sign up with the promo code Optimus for a $50 deposit match as soon as you finish your first draft. That's 10 free drafts, friends. Head over to fastdraft.app now and get drafting with the promo code Optimus. Also, the Fantasy Football Expo will be here before you know it, and we've got you covered. The Fantasy Football Expo is a great chance to meet your favorite analysts from around the industry, participate in meet and greet sessions, watch live industry drafts, and get to hang out with a bunch of fantasy football fanatics for an entire weekend at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Join the Optimus crew in Canton, Ohio between August 8th and 10th for live meet and greets, golf tournaments, cornhole, parties, panels, and more. Head over to the Fantasy Football Expo to get your tickets with our promo codes Optimus-2025 for $10 off the purchase of a gold, silver, or VIP package. Ultimate-Optimus-2025 for $25 off the purchase of the Ultimate Fan Experience. This includes a Friday exclusive meet and greet ticket to get up and close and personal with your favorite fantasy football analysts. Limited number available. Amrith, it has been so good having you on. I'm so glad I got to have you on after you were nice enough to have me on your show in February as we talked Bears. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Of course, man. Anytime. I really had a great time, especially like drafting and doing all this. Especially, it keeps me in thinking for the upcoming season. So appreciate it. Had a great time, and thank you for having me as usual.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest Amrith for joining us this evening. If you haven't already, subscribe to SoBackSports on YouTube. Punch it in, you will find it. Amrith, tell the people what else you have coming up over the next few weeks or months that they should check out.
As of right now, I'm continuing adding more content to the channel, going over various players or various teams. And then specifically, we have a lot of topics that we cover on the SoBackSports podcast within the SoBackSports channel. So stay tuned for more episodes and content. I'm also trying to expand into basketball and even hockey at times. So, there might be a chance that might happen before the NFL season starts this season. So remember to subscribe.
Absolutely. Hit that subscribe button when you guys can. I'd also like to thank everybody who joined the mock draft this evening, especially the regulars. You guys have been fantastic. It is darn near impossible to do a mock draft show without folks like you mocking with us. Next week, we will be back to the Scott Fish Bowl mock draft format. If you would like to participate in that one next week, be sure to join the Optimus Fantasy Discord server for first dibs in spots. That link will be in the description of this video. Next week, I will be having a great guest joining me for that. The only hints I'm going to drop for you on this stream is that 1, he's Canadian, and 2, he's worked with our very own Lou Brunson in writing fantasy football content. And now it's up to you to put the rest of the pieces together on who that might be. Coming to you live on Optimus Fantasy, have a great night. I will see you all next week. Take care.